Welcome back to Somebody You Should Know, and I'm your host, Leon Wilson. Today's special guest is Eleanor Ward. She's a life coach, she's a published author, and she has a story that you have got to hear. It is trials and tribulation, it's overcoming, it's born again, it's renewing of self. It's all these things rolled into one. She's an exceptional person, and she's done extraordinary things. You know, we have no control over the cards that we are dealt. All we can do is play the hand. Well, this person, Eleanor Ward, she's a master. Just sit back and relax because you're going to hear somebody you should know. All right. Wow. Wow. Well, here we go. Eleanor Ward. Oh my goodness. Ever since that first conversation we had, I just wanted to know more. Your life seems to be exciting. I really feel that life is like a roller coaster ride. It's some ups and downs. There's some hard turns and lefts and stops and starts. And when you were telling me about your life, I felt that way. And I felt in a lot of ways that it's very similar to my own. So for my guest tonight, um, I just want you to tell your story. So we're going to start with where you at right now. What do you do right now?
Well, right now I am working on pushing my life coaching practice forward. Um, I'm working on a book to complement the practice, and I'm starting to kind of implement all my ideas so that I can have everything ready to go because this is going to be my year of just going for everything and making it happen. So that's kind of where I
I
am right
love
now.
that. I love that. I went to your website, and first of all, when I got to your web page, I just felt like fun. I felt like you were having fun taking those pictures, and it kind of brought me into that because I felt like it was just fun. And but there was something you said in in your about you page that really struck me, and it said that you were a fresh start expert. Oh my goodness. How many people do you know that needed a fresh start expert? Because I'm one of those. I'm one of those people that needed a fresh start expert. And you just wear many hats because you definitely a motivational speaker because when we were talking before, you motivated me. You're a life coach. You have all these different things. You're a published author, and the title. We're going to talk about the title of your book because that's a whole nother thing. So we're gonna get into all these type of things. So you're all around. This year, 2023, we're a couple of years after COVID, and now it seems like you're on the launching pad. You're getting ready to launch something big here. And I'm so happy that I'm at
Yeah.
the beginning as well. But let's go back to your beginning. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Kansas City,
No.
Missouri. Go Chiefs! Yes. Oh, I truly did. So I grew up with all four seasons, tornadoes, the whole
You're
nine.
the first person I've ever
And
met.
actually, growing up, loved it.
You're
Loved
the
it.
first person I've ever met from Kansas City. Yes.
Really? Oh, we're everywhere.
Oh my goodness. So when you
Oh yeah,
did
that's
you grow up in a two parent household, or did you raised by a single mom, single dad? What was that like?
I was raised in a two-parent household with a stay-at-home mom, which growing up in the 70s and 80s was very rare for Black people, especially to have a stay-at-home mom. You might have had two parents, but you definitely didn't have a stay-at-home mom. But I had an entrepreneurial stay-at-home mother. So there was really no sitting on her laurels. I had four brothers and sisters, so it was five of us, and my mom and dad made seven people in a four-bedroom house. So it could get a little tight at times, and then one of the bedrooms was taken so that my mom could do a lot of her entrepreneurial things. And she was a local seamstress, and she
Uh,
flipped that into a business where she made clothes for business women. She made clothes for drill teams and proms and weddings. And then she added a piece later on when things started changing size wise, and she added what we call we call it plus size now, but she added that plus size piece, and then her business like boomed overnight because back then you couldn't find plus size clothes in the store,
right.
and so the women would be beating on our door to get clothes that look nice and fit and would last. And so my dad was a postman for 40 years.
Wow.
He was a what do you call him? I don't know why they changed so many names. But anyway, he was a postal worker. He actually delivered mail, so he was a postman.
Oh yeah.
And
Yes.
so that's how I grew up. And yeah, very religious household. We were raised as Jehovah's Witnesses. My dad was originally, he started off as a minister, then an elder, then he moved into the role of officer, presiding overseer over his own congregation in Kansas City. And if you know, for people that are from the church world, that's like a pastor and first lady. So that's the role that they played. And so that was very heavy in my life. And I left the witness culture officially when I was 30 years old. But growing
Wow.
up, even though we had so many restrictions, I had a good life. I had a good childhood.
Wow. That's incredible. I was telling you before about there's some similarities. Well, I grew up in a
Mhm.
Jehovah Witness family as well. My mother, she was the first one, and then my dad, and then my oldest sisters. So I grew up in that lifestyle as well, and there is a strictness to it. Birthdays and holidays was a little bit different than people experience today. So it was different. How was your school life? So you're coming from this entrepreneurial, you're seeing your mother doing this, and then your father, he's solid as a rock in his career. So how is your school life? What is that about? Are you really smart? Are you really hitting the books? Or are you out there and just loving life early on, free spirit?
No, I started reading probably around three. It was a lot back then. They had what they call gifted and talented programs, and I ended up going into that in the fourth grade because at the school I was at, the local neighborhood school, um, it wasn't really a black school, but we were in kind of a black kind of mixed neighborhood. I'll say that. So it was
Okay.
more black children at that school, and unfortunately, their program just didn't support where I was at, and so they bused me way out to a white school,
Hmm.
and it kind of changed my life. And I don't think for the better. I think we need to make more of an effort of schools to make sure that they can help those who may be a little bit more higher up on the intellectual level. But that's when I learned about racism and meanness and everybody, oh, you're here, you're in that program now. Now they're challenging you, asking you questions, and I'm like, I don't have to sit and answer your questions. I read when I got to the fourth grade. I was reading on college levels, and I comprehended and could spell when I was in contests and stuff like that. So, long story short, school was a nightmare. I hated it, and I wish my mom would have known how to homeschool me. But I guess being past where she was, and I won't say I was past where she was mentally because I think my parents were the smartest people. So, I just think being past able to teach me in the manner that I would have needed, and then also throwing in the Jehovah's Witness piece of not being able to stand up for the flag and people judging you, and you got teased and you couldn't go to anything the kids had. So it was like maybe it would have been better if I didn't have that piece because I could have at least mingled with the kids how I wanted. but I had that piece, so I couldn't. And then I have this smart piece over here, and they wanted to skip me a couple of grades, and my parents didn't let them. I kind of wish they had because I never really fit in. And then I started to, when I got to middle school, I started trying to dumb myself down, and it was really
Oh,
hard and trying to make myself lesser than I was because people think geniuses are crazy and don't have this and that. I won't say I was a genius, but when you have a level where your IQ is high, the world really does punish you, and it becomes very hard to function in everyday world. And so now I'm trying to, honestly, I have to build my IQ back up for me. I don't know what the number is now, but I know I'm not operating on the levels I once was. So I'm like, screw this. I don't want to play the dumb chick anymore. I'm ready to get back to the mental capabilities and things that I know that I can do.
what were you telling your parents when you went to the new school and you start experiencing racism and all these other isms that goes around along with that because the kids notice that you're smarter than the average kid. Your teachers are seeing you. They want to promote you to another grade. Your parents saying no, you stay there. But what were their teachings as it related to your experience with racism?
My mom was mixed. She was half German, half black. And my dad kind of had a little bit of all kind of stuff going on, but he just identified as black. So I remember one day I was like, "Oh, they called me the N word," and I was crying a little bit. And my dad said, "Well, what's wrong with it?" When I got home? Cell phones didn't exist back then. She was like, "Oh, she had somebody call her the N word for the first time. That's what my mom did."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Wow," she's just dismissing it like it's nothing. And so after that, I really didn't say too much about it because I guess, my dad, he came to me quietly. He was more of, I'll deal with it later in a private conversation or in prayer. My mom just kind of was like, that's life. You deal with it, you move on. And
Mm.
he came and kind of said, kids can be mean, they can be ignorant. And him being a kid in, say, the 30s and 40s, he said there was a time he couldn't even walk down the street unless she said, yes, sir, ma'am, and bowed your head and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So he told me, at least you don't have to do that. And you don't have to stand and let anybody call you names. He said, walk away. Say what you want to say back. Call them, say certain things. He didn't say like cuss them out and act crazy. He said, show them the intellect that you have. Because my dad was very big on smart. So he said, pull out a name, they got to go home and look up. And so I did. I started using the vocabulary I had. And they would be like, what did she say? And I would go look it up and I'd walk away. And it would just be a big word that I knew they didn't know.
Oh,
But, if they don't know it, they think it's an insult. So, yeah.
okay. So your mom and dad came at it from two different points of view. Your dad is saying use your intellect, be above what they're trying to bring you down to, and your mom is saying, listen, that's the ward off a duck's back. She's more
Yeah.
like sticks and stones. That don't have nothing to do with you. It don't make a difference what they say. You just keep being you.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, I got you. I got you. So now you go through that. What is high school like? What's going on there?
Ugh. Um, High school sucked because here's the catch 22. When I got bussed out again to the middle school because no matter how hard I tried, I guess I wasn't as dumb as I wanted to be, and I was still surpassing. So I got bussed to the local academy, and I met a whole bunch of different people. But like I said, we started bumping heads and different things like that, and I didn't know how to fit in at that point. Then I said, well, I don't want to be this far away from home anymore because, contrary to popular belief, most good schools or academies for Black children and things like that back then were in bad areas. I don't know why. And so I was bused way down into the local inner city, and you have this huge, beautiful academy complex school sitting there. So I said, I want to come back towards the house. And that way, if I miss the bus or if something happens, I can walk home. And
Mhm.
so I came back home, and now I'm encountering all the kids I went to school with that I got taken out of. So it was very hard because it was a judgment of Oh, look who's back here. Oh, what happened to you? Now you would think we're in high school, fourth grade wouldn't matter, but kids remember. And so it wasn't a great experience. I did not care for high school. I was what I would call a popular loner. Like everybody knew me, but I wasn't in any group. And since everybody also knew I was a Jehovah's Witness, so even though I wanted to be the cheerleader, even though I wanted to do all the stuff the kids were doing, they knew I couldn't do them. So
Right.
that I had people that were kind and fun and all that, but I also had people that could make it very hard. But overall, I didn't enjoy high school.
Right.
Not at all.
Right. I see that. So early on through school, people saw you as being different, above
Mhm.
your race or even your religion. You were different. You
Yeah.
were kind of set aside. Some people that were uh, maybe I'm gonna say ignorant, but just not knowing um, what you were all about so far as your education is concerned, and also coming from a strong family that laid a foundation for you. A lot of people who didn't have that really couldn't understand you, so they were kind of, I don't really know about her. Did you have some good friends though? Did you have a group that you hung out
I
with?
had a couple here and there. Like I said, I was known. I was a popular loner, but I had a few good friends that I could call and we could do things with. Probably didn't help my journey through high school that I got married when I was 17 in high school. So I was a senior and I was married, so that probably didn't help my high school journey either.
Wow. Wow.
But overall, yeah, I had a few friends.
What okay, now this is a twist here. So you're going through all these different things. You don't have a lot of friends or anything like that. You really kind of like a loner. But some kind of way you met a young man. And was this a young man in your school?
No,
Okay.
I met him when I was at my job, my first job.
Meet this young man. You hit it off with him, and you get married. You get married, and now you're ready to start your life. You graduate out of high school, and then what do you do? You're married now. What do you do?
Well, I'm married. He actually goes away to the military while I finish school. I graduate a half year early instead of a year early because for whatever reason they were trying to hold me there. But I had pretty much finished all my credits in my junior year, and I have no idea why, but they had literally to stay in high school. I had to work. That's what people thought I was just being too much. But back then there were work study programs, and because I had reached all the academic stuff, for whatever reason, they made me stay there and complete a semester of actual work. So I had to work, and that's why I used to work so hard as a work study person. And I met him when he got back from active duty. We moved out to California. Then we had to drive home for me to walk the stage, which I did do, and then we went back to California where he was stationed until the first baby came. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Now here we go. Here we go. The first baby, boy, girl, what?
First baby boy. He came in 92. He popped on the scene. We weren't really expecting it. And he popped on the scene out of Cal. He was born in California. And at that point, we were trying to decide what we were going to do. My husband had a job offer with NASA. But um, I was no longer working now. I'm a stay at home mom. Um, and he doesn't want to do the military type stuff. He would have, because I kept trying to tell him, you won't be in the military. You'll work for NASA. And they wanted him for security because
Mm,
he was security out in, not security, he did special ops and security type stuff where he was at. And he just was so burnt out. So I think we spent another, was it 2 years out there? And then we came back home, which I didn't want to do. I wanted to stay in California. I was mad. I was angry. I was pissed. I was like, what did we come back here for? It's nothing here. Kansas City is a great place to grow and have a family, but if you want more than just traditional stuff, that's not it. So I was
yeah.
not happy.
Yes, yes. So you come back to Kansas City. You have a little boy. You're not really happy, but you got to make it work. So what do you do so far as a job when you come back home?
I'm still a stay-at-home mom because before we left California, I had had spinal surgery, and
Oh,
so I had my lower half of my back fused with rods, which did absolutely nothing over the long length time. But at that time, I was still healing, so I had this new baby, little toddler now. I'm still trying to do therapy because the surgery wasn't that old, and let's see, my son turned 3, and the second one was on its way. So yeah.
okay, okay. So now you're expecting. You you have one. You're expecting another one. Your husband, I'm sure he's happy. Husband is happy. Another child is coming. You're making plans, but the 911 it can't work now. Not with two children. It can't work. So
No.
so what's happening when the second little one is born and you're raising the two kids? I'm sure you're a stay at home mom at this point. You're taking care of the kids. It's two boys, right?
Yes, 2 boys.
Two boys.
Well,
So
at
you
this point, uh, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no. At this point, you're raising the boys, and what comes next?
At this point, I'm raising the boys, and he gets into the fire academy, so I can't take a job yet again.
Okay.
So now he's in the firefighter academy, and that's 3 months long. And and I'm pregnant while he's in the fire academy, and I'm sick. And so I have hyperemesis with both babies. So this time he goes, well, you go stay with your mom because at least our family's around. I wasn't in California. So I go stay with my mom, which was a nightmare because she didn't know how to take care of a sick pregnant person. I guess him going every day, he's missing me, his son, he's missing everything. So finally he just comes and picks me up. I think it was after the first month and a half or something, he was going to the academy. And he just picks me up, he throws me over his shoulder, pregnant and all, he grabs the baby and he takes us home. He says, I don't know how we're gonna figure out how sick you are, but we're gonna figure it out. And so we went back home. And believe it or not, my 3-year old was a great help, but I was really sick. And I think that helped him to pass his tests and different things with the academy because I was back in the house, and he became a firefighter. So once again, daycare is really a daycare and a job are not necessarily on my path because now he works 1 day on, 2 days off. If they call
Yeah.
him for overtime, he takes it. So there's no way I can have a traditional job. Not
Yeah.
at the age the boys were at that time.
Okay. Okay. Two children, husband. Things are working out great. Everything is happening. At least you're a stay at home mom, and actually very similar to your household when you were growing up. I mean, witnesses
It was.
that dad is working on a career job, mom stay at home mom, and so you're in that same place. Your husband career job, you're a stay at home mom. You're taking care of the family, but then at some point you have a tragedy. What happened?
And so I got a job in Las Vegas
Oh,
at the local college teaching. And I hadn't really taught much before. I taught a little bit, but not a lot. And so on the road trip to Vegas, my husband and my oldest son were killed in a car accident. And myself and my youngest son were the survivors.
oh my goodness. Oh, oh, wow. So you lose. I'm sure it felt like you just lost your whole world. I mean, even though you were going through some challenging times in your marriage, you you lost your best friend, and more than that, your son. So but you're on your way to Vegas. Do you turn back around? Do you say, okay, I need to go back. I need to be around my family. I need to be around my mom and dad. Is that what you do?
It wasn't because of family, because we were a fractured family at that point. Half of us weren't practicing. Some of us were. It was all over the place. My husband had left the religion some years before. He came and told me he didn't want to do it anymore. I had to respect that. So I was kind of going with the boys. The boys eventually said, if dad's not going, why should we go? And my brothers and sisters were kind of all over the place too. And so I called my dad because he's my daddy. And I knew he would show up, and he was there. We were 2.5 hours outside of Kansas City. We were in Oklahoma where it happened on the road. And so, and then I called his family just to inform them. So the only reason I went back home was because we were so close. Had I been farther out or farther away, I probably would have did everything wherever we were. But since we were only a couple of hours away, I turned everything around and did everything at home.
Okay, so you come home and you come home to heal. You come home to really regroup. You come home to really look at your life. I'm sure you had a lot of time to really think about your whole life as a whole. What made you start to move again?
Well, we're gonna do a little plot twist that everybody's not gonna be ready for. I got no support from my family.
Oh my goodness.
So I still moved to Las Vegas after everything. I moved to Las Vegas 2 weeks later. Um, sorry. I moved to Las Vegas 2 weeks later. And they held my job. I take it back, it was probably almost a month later. Um, we had just built our house in Kansas City. We had just built a 3-car garage, 4-bedroom house from the ground up. And so I literally left everything we had just built. And my dad wanted to support me, but my grandmother had passed, who had no relationship with any of us. And my mother said that her grief was more important than mine.
Oh,
And I let her have that. I got no support in planning the funeral, the memorial. I had no clue what I was doing. My brothers and sisters totally turned their backs on me. And I was like, what did I do wrong? And so I got no solace from the religion, which I knew I wouldn't, because Jehovah's Witnesses don't care about death because they believe in the resurrection. So you don't get any grief solace from them. And it was actually from a local church group that my kids used to go play basketball with some friends. They were the ones that came and helped me. They prayed with me. They helped me, get some things done and taken care of. They helped pack up the house. And not one witness that I had spent 30 years of my life, seeing every day, came and even tried to be kind to me. And so at that point, I said, well, I could stay here, but for what? And so I ended up going on ahead and moving me and my son to out to Vegas.
what was your? I, I can't even imagine it. I can't really imagine how difficult this whole thing was. It was. I mean, your mind had to be going a mile a minute. It was. It's. I don't know. I don't know. But you move and you go on, and now you end up in Las Vegas. It's you and your son. How do you move on? What do you do for a job, and what do you live at? What do you do, and what is your son saying through all of this? Not having his grandparents there, not having that whole process. What is going on?
Well, getting there, we found a house. Probably we stayed in a hotel um, because everything was kind of thrown off. I was supposed to be taking care of all the stuff before I left, but we ended up just staying in a local hotel and finding a house. It took us about 2 weeks. And my son was 11 at the time. He didn't say much. I guess he felt like he didn't. But at the end of the day, I feel bad. I wish I had asked him what he wanted to do. Being pulled from his grandparents wasn't hard. I mean, my husband's parents really didn't associate with the grandchildren, at least not mine. They only dealt with their youngest son's kids because that was their favorite kid. And then my parents, he spent time with them, but because they were so enmeshed in the religion, they weren't like the come around type grandparents because they were out in the field service. They were out doing, you know, different things. So they were just so busy. So it wasn't a lot that he lost in that term. His aunts and uncles, like I said, all over the place because some people are practicing, some people are not. And for people that don't understand, when you're not practicing, you really don't have a lot of interaction with your family members.
Right.
And so I just found out the other day, he's 27 years old now, that he said the first year in Las Vegas was hard. And and I look back, it probably was. I got on as a college instructor teaching medical assisting because I was a medical assistant. And I was very new at teaching it. I really wasn't very good, but somehow they gave me the job across the country. And I remember thinking, he's having such a hard time because I had not worked their whole lives. And when I did work, it seemed fun, even though they didn't know it was work, event planning or mystery shopping or whatever. But you had access to mom 24 hours a day. And so I think it was very hard for him to comprehend she's going to be stuck in a building for 8 hours and I can't be with her or around her or talk to her. So I look back now and I realize how hard it probably was for him. And he struggled a lot. He did.
Wow. Wow. Well, so you go through all of this. This is some very hard stuff. This is some hard stuff that we're talking about here because you really didn't have the support system. You didn't have that. You didn't have the religious background. Family wasn't there. But some kind of way, you just found some strength to just keep going. There's a lot of people who have these type of experiences that give up, that give up. And my next question to you is, why you just didn't give up?
Um, I don't think I knew how. And I couldn't give up because I had these big old brown eyes staring at me and
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna be darned if he was gonna want for anything. He may tell some tale now, but he didn't want for nothing. And I could feel every time he looked at me, I felt that, what now, mom? What are we gonna do? And I didn't want him to have to worry. And he didn't worry through his whole life. In his 20s as he grew up, that's another story. But when I had him and was raising him and all that, no, he didn't worry. And so that was my only mission. When I got to Vegas, my job ended a year later because nobody knew but me. It was only a temporary position to begin with. I knew it was a 1 year substitute position. A lady had cancer and I was filling her position. And then she, I guess, went into remission and came back into her job, which they always told me could be a possibility. And so then it became a little bit roller coasterish after that. That's kind of when I started moving all over the place. I stayed in Vegas for a few more years, teaching at another college. The college was purchased by Everest, and it went downhill quickly. And I don't know if you guys know, Everest had a lot of issues with how they were doing monies, and so they let a lot of us go. And at that point, instead of just sitting still like I knew to do and really planning, something had been programmed in my head when he died and my son died to just pick up and go.
Mm.
So the next thing I did was I drove to Arizona. I got a job at the college over there. I picked up my poor kid. He was 13, 14 or something at that time and dragged him to Arizona. And I didn't realize I was running from the sitting still. And so we were in Arizona, and that really wasn't a great place. I didn't know the racism was kind of rampant over there. And my son started having a lot of problems that he didn't have before. And so I started having problems. And so I was like, oh, this isn't working. So I picked up this poor kid again. We moved back to Vegas. We're not in the best area. My parents were like, well, just come home. I come home and the receiving isn't there.
Hmm.
Because I don't want to go back to the Kingdom Hall. I don't want to go back to that life. So at that point, a month into it, I'm out on the porch, chilling, trying to figure out what we're going to do because I thought I can sit still. I'm at home. And she comes out on the porch and she goes, 30 days of me being there. What are you going to do? When are you moving? Because you're not practicing. You're going to have to leave. So totally threw me off. I run and get I don't even remember what job it was, some little low paying gig. I get a place. My son has to go back now to the school we left. Same situation I had. And he's like, Mom, it's awful. And he doesn't tell me for months. So I don't know why he's struggling in school. And he finally says, well, they're always asking about Mom. They're always asking about Dad. I don't want to be here. I don't want to discuss that every day I go to school. Never occurred to my little brain, if he goes back to the school he was at, this could be his daily life. So they were throwing this poor kid into a grief shock every chance they got. And maybe they thought they were being helpful, but they were really not doing him a justice. And we had been gone for some years. So I thought, why are they still asking these questions?
Right.
So at that point, he finishes, he graduates, and I'm like, let's get the heck out of Dodge. So I pick him up again, and I'm like, you can stay here with your grandparents. So he moves in with my mom and dad, and he's trying to go to school to get his EMT. He doesn't finish. Um, and I guess he's trying to get to me at that point. I moved up to St. Louis, which was blah. And so I'm like, okay, this isn't working either. So then I decide, okay, one more go around. And I run down here to Texas, and we're going to move for Mom's final move this year. But he comes and he does everything. And I'm like, you don't have to keep coming with Mom. But I think in his mind, as a young man, and I'm all that he has left, I want to be near my mom. And he also doesn't want me to be alone. And I kept saying, Mom's okay. But he's been with me every step of the way. He's here in Texas as well. And so it began I call it the worldwide tour, just kind of running all over. He was up in Maryland with my sister for a while as well. Because that's when I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to put you in everything I can. So I was putting him in grief groups, grief camps, grief this, grief that. And that blew up in my face because that was not the thing to do. So we had this tour all over the country. And getting here was the wake up call to say, you should not have left Vegas where you were. You are done running around. You're 50 years old. I've been here 7 years now. But it's a wrap. So I told my son, we're going to go where we want to be. I like being warm. I like being hot. I don't like bugs. There's a lot of bugs here. And he said, yeah, this is it, Mom. This wasn't the best move. And I told him, it's time for you. You're 27. It's time for you to have the life you're supposed to have and do the things you're supposed to do and be with who you're supposed to be with. Because, I had to go through a lot to get to that place of, why are you running around like a chicken? Because that's what I was doing.
Well, tell me this. So wow, it's a journey. But what made you get involved into life coaching? What made you want to really put yourself out there and do that?
You know, at that point, I got my life coach when I first moved to Vegas, and it just sat in a drawer looking at me. And I would look at it, and look at me, and then I would say maybe technically maybe 4 years ago, I pulled it out of the drawer, and I was like, okay, either you're gonna do something with this or you're not. And I decided to start life coaching, and not much was happening. I was just doing regular life coaching, and technically, I'm certified as a life coach strategist, so I give you strategies. But I was trying to do traditional life coaching. That wasn't happening. So then I said, well, let me move into the strategy side. And everybody was like, well, you know so much about business. Be a business coach.
Yeah.
And I was doing it, but it wasn't my forte because I just knew that's not what I was trying to do. And so then when I started going to the Black Christian church, I started going to some grief counseling there. I won't say counseling; it was more of a group grief. And I said, you know what? The way I dealt with my grief didn't work, and the things I did were helping, but I knew I needed to do more. So I sat down and said, there have got to be strategies for you to handle your grief. And so I spent a year. This was last year, developing my grief management program where I give you strategies to manage your grief because it's going to be with you the rest of your life. Because I couldn't understand why I couldn't get over it, why I wasn't feeling any better. Certain times of the year I was a monster. Sometimes of the year my son was a monster. And we were just not on the same page. And so when I did
Mhm.
that and I started practicing and putting stuff into place with myself, the anger subsided and a lot of things I was going through subsided. The tears where I was just crying, I just be driving down the street, just woo, all that stuff stopped because I began to understand how to manage my grief. So that's what kind of led me to that path. And now I incorporate that into my life coaching.
Wow, that is so interesting because it does seem like that you've been running this whole time. It seems like e- e- ever since ever since your husband died and your son died, you've been running, and it seems like you've been looking for something, and you returned home at one point, but you still was not able to find whatever it is.
I
And
actually go home twice through this journey.
twice.
Yeah.
Why did you why what made you go back that second time? Because when you went back with your son, and once you didn't come back into the fold of the witnesses, you left again. You mean you came back after that time?
Yeah, my dad was getting sick, and I said, well, I'll come back home one more time. And in my head, it's going to be different. It's going to be different. And it wasn't any different. It became the widow show everywhere I went. Um, my husband's nickname, every people on departments and stuff, fire departments have nicknames. His nickname was Juicy. And so everywhere I went, hey, it's Juicy's wife, it's Juicy's wife, it's Juicy's wife. That became very taxing for me. Even though I get that you're being friendly,
Yeah.
nowhere I went could I not be identified as that. And so that second time it was harder because I guess in their minds, well, she's had time to pass. We can talk about her husband openly and constantly in front of her. And, I would have them walk up to me in the grocery store. Oh, I remember when your husband did such and such. I remember when Chris would do this. I remember. And I'd be standing there going, you're going to trigger me into my grief.
Right.
And I don't want to be triggered. I'm just trying to get some eggs. So I realized how hard that was. And then when my son finally broke down and told me how hard it had been for him, I did us a disjustice going back home twice.
Do you feel like you never truly grieve your loss? You never really, because you were running. And even when you came back that second time and people started to say those things to you, it, did it feel in kind of a way like it almost just happened, like it was still so fresh, even though years had went by, because you've never really it seems like you wanted to take on these new challenges, these new things at these different places you've never been before. Because when you go into a new place, there's so many things going on that you have to do to just start over. But your mind is so preoccupied with doing that. Your mind is so preoccupied by surviving and you have this little one with you, and you don't have to think about the other stuff. You don't have to think about that. But once you get settled in, then those things that you were running away from, they seem to catch up with you because you're staying in one place. So they catch up with you. And it seems like though when you start doing the coaching and they again, you tried to go into a certain direction, that the strategies, the business part of it, but that's not the solution. It seems like now you have to incorporate what you've actually been through. And because you're doing that, now you're able to grieve. Now is that where we at? Is that
I think
what's
so.
going on?
When I stepped into that church group for grief, I had no clue. And I really give her a lot of credit because to me, she kind of saved my life, so to speak, because she helped me face that grief. And I hadn't grieved. I hadn't, it had been at that point 10 or 11 years since they had passed. And I knew I was still kind of walking on eggshells with myself. I knew my son was still having a lot of his own moments. He was in his early 20s at that time, like 20 or 21 or something. And so when I walked in there, I thought, yet another group that's not going to help, you know. And she had lost her mom through domestic violence with her father. Her father had murdered her mom.
Oh,
And I can't even begin to imagine how you deal with that. And so I knew, okay, this woman knows tragedy. And she was the over the group. And she said something to me. This was a few weeks ago, and I haven't been. I don't go to the church and stuff anymore, but I went there for 6 years. She sent me an email. She said, "One day, um, I'm going to be somewhere with you because you're the model now." And I
mm,
was just like, "Oh my God, I love that." And I said, "No,
mm,
I'm not the model. You the queen. You know what to do because, like I said, in that sense, she had saved me." And she said, "No, I love it. You're an example now." And so to hear somebody that saw you raw, crying and snotting and tissues, and you can't even get the words out
yes.
of how deep your grief is because you've been doing everything but dealing with it.
Hmm.
Um, I love that she said that. And so even when we weren't due to have the group, if I went to her at church and said, "I'm having a bad time, can we
Yeah.
talk?" She would go, "Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm always ready to talk about grief." And she would just come on and she would do it anyway. And I
Yeah.
appreciate that. And so, contrary to popular belief, there's not a lot of people out here that really know how to touch you and guide you through their grief. They may say they're certified, they may say they're um, grief, whatever, but when you talk to them, you get a lot of platitudes and the same stuff you always get. She knew how to get down and dirty because of what had happened to her. And
Yes.
she knew that type of grief is a little bit different. So
Wow. Wow. It is so good. It's just a blessing that you were able to find someone. I really believe that the spirit inside of us is made up of joy and love and all those things, and it's not able to uh, it's not able to withstand the pressures of grief. And so you have to be able to let that out. You have to let it out, get it out of you, because that's not its home. Our bodies are not the home for grieving and for evil and for hatred. And our bodies are not, our spirit rather, it's not made for that. And you have to get it out. You have to let it out in some kind of way, because it's those type of things are alien to who we are. And it was a blessing that you found someone to be able to bring that out into you. Have you worked with other women, now that you've been doing this type of work? Have you met other women that you've been able to talk to, and do you tell your story when you talk to other women?
Um, I've met other women. It just really depends. My story is kind of out there whether I want it to be or not, because when my husband and son passed, it was actually national news and it's in newspapers and different things of that nature. So some of the narrative is not correct, but I don't have
Yeah.
the power to correct it. But it is out there. I try to give people a glimpse on my website, and a friend of mine said, "Well, I didn't understand. I thought you were like cooking because of the fish." And then I read the website and you're smiling. It should be sad. It should be sad music. It should be this. I said, "Well, I can't portray a part of my journey I'm no longer in." I said, "So what you get on the website is, and I hope that people feel this when they look at the website, is hope. Because I want you to know there's hope that you're going to smile again. There's hope that you're going to feel silly." When we did the photo shoot, I told her I don't smile a lot. I deal with grief and it's lots here. She said, "Oh, okay." And she had me laughing the whole day. And those are candid shots. That's really me. I said, when somebody gets me where my eyes are almost closed, you got the real me. And so those are some really candid shots of me. And I want people to go on that site and say, this woman can help me from this place to this place. And that's what I want people to feel. And so I'm very thankful she has helped. If I called that woman today, she would talk to me. She would
Yeah.
help me, and I know that for a fact. And so when I reach out to people, I give them a little bit of the story, but I try to be quiet and let you get out what you need to get out so that you can start your healing. And then if it pops up where it's organic, I'll throw in some mixes, but I try not to make it, "Oh, this is the Eleanor show, this is my grief, listen to me." I want to know where do you need help and what has happened. And sometimes people have held stuff in so much. It's just you can feel their body just kind of opening as they speak these words, and they need that.
Uh, Tell me the title of your book.
The book is called The Scars Book. It was written 3 years ago. I'm trying to see if I have one somewhere close by. I don't know if you can see it or not. And it's actually an anthology, so there are 6 other ladies in the book. And for me, my story, people thought it was going to be all about my husband and son, but it's actually about the connection that I missed with my mother, which affected my marriage and my grief and all those things, because um, the story in the book says I felt like my mother never wanted me because she emphasized on a regular basis that
Mm.
I was the fifth child. She had two of each. She didn't need a fifth one. She told me, yeah, she didn't need an extra one. She told me that I stopped her career because she was finally able to get a building and come out of the house with her business. And I guess in her mind, she was getting ready to take off. And here comes this fifth baby. I'm nowhere near my brother and sister's age. So you're stuck. You got a 12-year-old at school, and then you got a brand new baby. The youngest was 6, and you got a brand new baby. So what I tell in the story is about how she showed love. She fed me. She took care of me, but I got no affection. I got
Oh.
no help, and I had to learn to push myself to do everything. I had to do my own homework, and my father saw this, and so he spent most of his time trying to make up for the lack of what he knew my mother wasn't giving me. And when you talk to my brothers and sisters, they will tell you, you got a different mother than we did.
Oh.
Well, of course I did. She was pissed off. She didn't want
Oh.
no baby. And she wasn't going to go have an abortion. So I got a mad, angry mother my entire life. Now, later in life, we became better friends. We didn't always see eye to eye. We argued a lot. But at the end of the day, it was because we were so much alike. And I don't think she wanted to admit that.
Yes.
But the book tells a really good that my story is really good for a lot of people that have told me I had problems with my mom too. We often think it's abuse or different things, but scars of someone that doesn't want you around is hard. You still trying to figure out how to love this person, but they're letting you know every minute of the day you're not wanted. I remember
Right.
she said, I thought you were the flu. And at
Oh,
that point, I forget how old I was. I said, well, I wasn't the flu. And now I'm here and you have to deal with it. And so, you know, my dad did everything, but no matter what the secondary parent does, they can't make up for when someone doesn't want you. And I
right.
don't know that it wasn't a want of me, it was a want of, I'm finally where I want to be in my life. Here comes this baby, and I can't do it anymore. So she had to come out of the place she was renting because, of course, they couldn't necessarily afford the rental with another baby. So she would let me know throughout my entire life how much I kind of cost her.
Yeah.
And I carried a lot of that on my back. I think that's how I began to carry that grief on my back as well. I'm like, I'll just pack it up. I'll pack up this grief and pack up this kid, and we're going to keep going because I had to pack up my feelings all the time anyway. In the first 5 years of my husband and son passing, my in-laws were suing me for wrongful death. So I did not have time to grieve. I was flying back and forth from Las Vegas to Kansas City, Missouri, and going before judges on a regular basis because that's how long they sued me over wrongful death. Um, it was just crazy. So there was no time for me to grieve or really to help my son. And so I kept trying to put that on everybody else. Here's a counselor, here's a this, here's a that. And one of the counselors called me and she said, I know you think you're helping. And your son said there's a lot going on with your in laws. She said, but he's not ready to be here. And if he's not ready to be here and talk to us, we can't help him. She said, but he's sweet as he wants to be. And so he carried so much of his own. And to me, I was like, okay, bring him back here. And then I still didn't deal with what that lady had just told me.
Yes.
I should have, but I didn't. Pack it up. Let's go to the next place. Nobody's gonna keep us from having the life we're gonna have. And I think I thought if I get the life, I get the house, I get the cars, I get everything, everything's gonna be perfectly okay. I had the big houses and all that stuff with just me and this kid in it, like we had a whole family of four again. That's ludicrous. But in my mind, I'm gonna keep us living this way. Nothing's gonna change, and I was killing myself.
Yes.
And so
Yeah.
it's a great book if people want to get it. The stories in here are not what you think. They're not like all molestations and stuff, rape and stuff like that. Not that people don't need help with that. But these are people that have had things that you don't think affect you. Abandonment, mental illnesses that people don't understand. Me, having my mom issues, being betrayed in different ways. And then in the story you do get some of the backstory about my husband and my child and how I saw full circle how everything really affected our lives from I couldn't pick up a phone and say I miss my husband because my mother was not going to sit there and listen to it.
Yeah.
I couldn't pick up a phone and say help me because my mother was not going to do it. So I didn't have that. So people don't realize when you don't have that, it changes a lot of things. I'd be sitting at home and I wish I could talk to my mom. I didn't want to talk to anybody else, but I also knew she wasn't going to talk to me about it.
Yeah.
And so when my dad died and she started calling me, the anger rose up. How dare you call me to talk about my father? Because I sure couldn't call you to talk about my husband. But the woman who had became the life coach sat on that phone and said, well, what's going on, mom? And listened. Even though the anger was on my shoulder, like, don't talk to her. But I couldn't see doing somebody the way she had done me. So um, it says it scars untold stories to heal the trouble, a collaboration of those who have tough trials and how they push through. So if anybody wants it, they can get it off my website.
Well, I'm definitely going to have the link to your website. And so definitely people will be able to click on the link, go to the website, get the book. I'm definitely going to get one because I want to hear some of those stories as well. This is this has been wow. This has been an incredible show for me just to hear your story, and there's so many other twists and turns that's in there as
Oh
well.
yeah.
It's an incredible story, but it's a story of overcoming. It's a story about I'm still here. After all of this, you're still here.
The lizard brain I had that just reacts is gone. The grief fog is cleared because grief fog is a real thing. And so I've gone back to planning everything out. I even down to getting back on the deciding to get on the podcast circuit and start really truly telling the stories. Like now I have my little poster boards filled with who I'm going to talk to and what's going to happen. And I'm getting back on as far as looking for homes and places to live. What's going to be the best place for us to go? And my son has told me he maybe not going with mom this time, and I'm like, oh! But at the same time, I'm happy. It's his time to do what he wants. So everything's going to be planned out. So I'll either be somewhere near my sister on the East Coast or back in Vegas, and doing my full thing, which will be having a small boutique for life coaches to come to and bring clients and trainings and different things that you need because it's just so much to start these businesses and you don't know who you're giving your money to or what's happening. So I want to have that where you can come in, get the help, someone you can trust. You're not throwing your money down the tube. You can get your business up and going. You can use some of the rooms and things like that. So that's my next thing of having a place for life coaches to meet and commune and say, how can we help one another? Because people don't always respect the coaching community, but it's huge. It's very huge. So and that's what's gonna happen. That's this year is gonna be getting out of here, finishing up everything, and getting all those ducks in a row because I'm gonna make things happen not only the way I used to, but better.
Wow. Well, I can tell that you have started back growing again. So that means you started back living. And they say that life is for the living. And you are definitely doing that. I just want to
Yes,
thank you for being a part of my show. And it has truly been wonderful. And you have blessed me so far as my understanding about grief and the work that you have to put in to get through it. Sounds like there was a lot of darkness, but some way you made it to the light, and now you've not only made it, but now you helping other people as well. So I just want to thank you for that. Thank you for your service, for giving back to people that really need that, because it was a time that you needed that and you found it, and to be the light for someone else's darkness is so important. So I just thank you for that, and thank you for being on my show.
I thank you for having me and allowing me to tell my story. It's a lot of twists and turns in it, and sometimes people are a little shocked, and I appreciate that. I hope this helps someone because someone else is going through a lot in their grief and nobody may know just how much they're really dealing with. So hopefully this helps someone and your show helping me to get the message out there. And that's my goal is you're getting this message out there so that people can we gotta heal. We gotta heal to get our lives back and be happy. So thank you for having me.
Well, Eleanor Ward, you're definitely somebody you should
Yes.
know.
Well, thank